So on my left I have Simon O'Connor, who's the Chief Education Officer of Alta Thames School Management and also Principal of Deira International School. I have Brett Given, the Principal of the Arbour School. I have Rhys Headley, who is the Head of Secondary at GEMS First Point, the Villa, and I have Sean from GEMS Metropole, who is the Head of the Prep School. So as I say, a kind of broad array of talent here. I'd like to start off by just establishing what exactly the British curriculum is, because I think we bandy that word around as if we all know what it is. But Simon, can you just give us a sort of précis of what is the British curriculum exactly?
Absolutely. Well, I think the first thing to say is there is no British curriculum, so let's start there, because actually there is a national curriculum for England, which is what many of us refer to as the British curriculum, which interestingly works across England and Wales and international schools, but there is actually a Scottish curriculum as well. So what we're talking about is the national curriculum for England. And I fully appreciate, as a parent myself, this can be quite a dark art, and it's lots of different terms. So let's take it down to the basics. In secondary school, British curriculum is divided into three different, what we call key stages. Key stages 3, 4 and 5. Students who are 11 to 14 study Key Stage 3, 15 and 16 study Key Stage 4, and 17 and 18 study Key Stage 5. In Key Stage 3, so 11 to 14, it's generally a wide variety of subjects. The theory behind that is we don't want children specialising too soon, so they will study the basics, the core subjects, English, Maths and Science, almost certainly modern languages as well, the humanities, geography, history. They will do other subjects such as drama, music, sports, etc. So in Key Stage 3, it is a wide variety of subjects, enabling the students to explore those different disciplines. In Key Stage 4, aged 15 and 16, students will study GCSEs. GCSE stands for the General Certificate of Secondary Education. For old people like me, they replaced O-levels. So that is an examination that they will spend 2 years studying in years 10 and 11. And the normal diet there is about 8, 9, 10 subjects. And it really depends on the school and the student. That will consist of a variety of compulsory subjects. Most schools will do English, Maths and Science, double science or triple science as a core, and then students are able to pick 4 or 5 subjects to take it up to their total. They will study those subjects for 2 years, and at the end of that 2 years they will be assessed by a combination of exams and increasingly less, but coursework, controlled assessments. So that's work they do outside of the exam hall. So that's 2 years. You then have post-16, Key Stage 5, and the English National Curriculum offers A-levels. Again, students will choose those subjects, and they will choose 3, maybe 4 subjects. But my advice is always to do 3, because universities will require 3 subjects. So unless you are doubling up on maths and further maths, there really is nothing particularly to be gained by doing a 4th subject. Those subjects are far more in depth. They're very difficult, obviously, at that age. And again, this is a 2-year course which leads to terminal exams. However, it is also important to point out that's a generalised view. A lot of schools will do different things as well. So, Deira International School in post-16, we take IB, the International Baccalaureate, which consists of, again, a variety of different options, which is done slightly differently. And I know there's a panel looking at the IB later, so I won't go into that in huge detail. There are other vocational courses, such as BTECs, which offer a slightly different route as well, where they're less examined, more coursework. But that's a 15-second summary.
Thank you, and hopefully that just sets out the kind of the basics, the kind of rubric of what the British curriculum is. I think it's really important to understand that. Brett, you're a kind of British curriculum all the way through. What made you, when the school started, choose to be a British curriculum school rather than any of the other curriculums? We have 17 curriculums on offer here in Dubai. We are unique in that. But the British curriculum is still the most popular. Why did you choose that as your curriculum for school?
I think one of the key reasons why families favour the national curriculum, the British curriculum if you like, is that it has a real currency globally. No matter what the age of your child is, if you say that they're doing maths in the GCSE years, it should look the same here in Dubai versus Singapore versus a school in downtown London. And that currency globally, I think, gives parents a lot of comfort, a lot of security, so they know that it's going to work for them around the world. I think the key thing, and you said earlier, is it's a framework. So the what, I always describe as the what, the content that we're required to teach, the levels, the standards, the the objectives that we're supposed to meet in each year is consistent, but the how then falls to us. So for the Arbor School, that was the sort of key with that. What is then gives you the confidence to say what you're learning at in Dubai at Arbor should be the same compared to what you're learning in other school in Dubai. But the how, we have the freedom to choose. And so for us, the how becomes a really high priority in terms of the way that we deliver the curriculum.
And can you talk a little bit more about how you deliver it? Because I think you have a unique take on
Yes.
it at the Arbor School.
So if you're not familiar with the Arbor School, we offer the national curriculum. It's an ecological school grounded in the national curriculum. So for us, our three pillars are about sustainability, eco-literacy, and global environmental justice. Most people are okay with sustainability. Eco-literacy is this idea that there are models of how the world can work, and most of them are in the natural world. So if we take some of those models and understand systems and boundaries and constraints and limitations, we can apply that systems thinking to most of the bigger problems that exist in the world. It doesn't mean that we care about the natural world and not everything else. To be eco-literate, you need to be literate. So the two things go hand in hand. And then the ways in which we deliver that in terms of pedagogical approaches, how we teach, critical in bringing to life the sort of skill set in the children that we want them to possess as they learn. So for us, where we teach, how we teach, as well as what we teach, are then sort of on par. And I think even if you looked at most schools in Dubai, in their mission statements, it would say that we are designing an education that brings to life curiosity and connection and 21st century skills, these sorts of things. It's not an either or argument. A lot of people, I think, have a criticism around the national curriculum that focus very much on the what and not the kind of children that we're trying to bring to life at the end of the process, but I think that's probably unfair.
I think that's so interesting because what we're saying is that yes, we use the British National Curriculum as a framework, but the ethos of the school is the kind of defining factor, not the kind of curriculum. But actually, at first point, you do things slightly differently again.
I particularly like the flexibility of the national curriculum. Can you hear me? I particularly like the flexibility of the British curriculum and that we can tailor it to meet the needs of we can tailor it to meet the needs of students that come to our school. So in Dubai, we obviously have lots of students from lots of different countries. They've got plans for their future that they're going off to universities in Egypt, they're going to universities in America, they're going to universities in the UK, and it's making the UK curriculum allow them to take those opportunities. So it's quite important that we look at the students we have and we tailor the curriculum to meet them. Also in Dubai, we have Arabic, Islamic, social studies, so we're able to interweave those subjects into the UK curriculum, which is very helpful for our students.
So there's a sort of degree of flexibility built into the British curriculum. But I think also you take a more kind of vocational approach to some of it in your kind of quite innovative learning.
So we have different pathways for our students. We look at the individual student and we think about what they need. So some students want to do the traditional A-level route, they want to do medicine, so they do science, they do maths, and they go off to university to do that. Other students want to take the BTEC course, which is, as Simon said, a more vocational route, and that will prepare them for their pathway. It's about capturing what the children want to do at a younger age and deciding what is the best pathway to suit their needs.
And you talked sorry, that's a bit loud. You talked there about BTECs and A-levels. Just, I think, to be clear, obviously this fits into the Key Stage 5 stage that Simon was talking about, but you can combine those two together, can't you?
Yes, it depends obviously on the type of BTEC that you do, whether you do the diploma or advanced subsidiary, that some of them are worth 1 A-level, some of them are worth 3. So different schools do a combination of both, or different ones depending on what they want to do. There is also the BTEC level 2s, which is the equivalent for GCSE, so some students would pick them instead of the GCSE. So when our students pick their options, we make sure that they have all the information that they need, they think about the future, what they want to do, they're not sure, and therefore we make a plan and put that in place so that they're able to fulfil their wants and needs.
I think it's again there's very much this flexibility in the British National Curriculum that you can deliver it through a sustainability ethos, you can do it in a very traditional way, which I think is more the way you do it at DI? No? Okay.
Not really, no. I mean, some of it will be quite traditional, sort of the way in which many schools do it, but as I say, we actually do level 2 and level 3, so equivalent of GCSE, BTECs as well. And as I say, I think the diverse range of options that we have, the pathways that we have in Key Stage 5 for IB are not traditional as well, so yeah.
Okay, so again, this huge flexibility.
Yeah, I would say that the flexibility of the English National Curriculum, but also, as Brett's alluded to, the way in which it is respected worldwide. It really is, with the exception of Australia, which sometimes needs a little bit of explaining. This is a very respected, a very rigorous and a challenging curriculum that is that actually is sought out by other countries and universities.
Yes, and it's definitely sort of held as the kind of gold standard, isn't it? And I think one of the key things to understand, it's recognised by universities all over the world, the British curriculum. So if you're doing A-levels, I get asked this a lot, but will that work in other countries? And absolutely it will. And Sean, you're obviously at James Metropole. Tell me why British curriculum there, and what do you think the strengths are of delivering British curriculum at James Metropole?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think primarily from our point of view, we deal with a sort of a mid-market range sort of clientele. So in terms of our parents and families, it's crucial to give them something that stood the test of time and that has real sort of gravitas and real respect globally as well. What we try to do is to use the British curriculum as a foundation. So something that we've introduced over the last couple of years is we introduced these sort of mini schools within a bigger school. And so now we have what we call the active school, which is Key Stage 3, and we have the future school, which is Key Stage 4 and 5 from year 10 onwards. And what we do is we use those to sort of develop our pedagogy and look at ways in which we can use the British curriculum, but then actually through the theme of active school. So looking at how can we ensure that our curriculum, the diet that we're giving, but also the way in which it's taught is delivered in an active way. So looking at stuff like active pedagogy, making sure that the students are out of their chairs, making sure that they're doing stuff that's thematic, that's practical based, so that they're not sort of just passive learners. And when they get into the future school, it's all about making sure that we build those industry links. So whatever we do in terms of our curriculum, that we really bring it to life and students understand the implication of what they're studying and actually how that applies in the real world.
Okay, thank you. I think, as we talked about it sort of from a traditional point of view, and you've said, Brett, that actually, what's amazing about the British National Curriculum is you can be in London, you can be here in Dubai, you can be anywhere in the world in the British National Curriculum School, and you will be covering the same content. But I think we touched on it as what we deliver. I think the schools here in Dubai deliver is like what we would call the enriched kind of British curriculum. Do you want to just touch on what that means and why you think it's enriched?
Yes. So if you were in the UK and my colleagues here, you can tell I'm a colonial as opposed to a British national, so they can probably help out a little more. In a state-mandated school, there are requirements that you are required to teach and deliver, and some of those don't apply here, for better or for worse. So that means that we have a little bit of freedom to enrich it. So some of the requirements that are here, for example, are Arabic language, moral and social studies. Those are things from the UAE government requirements, but also we can bring in anything really that we can squeeze into the curriculum. And of course, one good thing sometimes has to displace another good thing, which is why there's such a breadth of choice in Dubai. And you could choose my school, which has a particular focus, or any of my colleagues here, if you really like the focus of what they're offering. Some of the things we probably offer in common, we would probably all offer maybe more language choices that you might find elsewhere. We might all offer more enrichment in terms of sports and ECAs that you might find elsewhere in a state-maintained school in the UK. And then, as I say, my school has a particular focus on sustainability and global environmental justice. So I would welcome you to come and tour my school and say, yes, this is what I value. This really gels with me as a parent of what I want for my children. And if not, you might go to Simon's school and say, you know what, the internationalism that I have and what I hope for my children, maybe we'd prefer to go into a senior school that looks more like the IB. So the enrichment part, the enriched national curriculum, just means that we've got the ability to sort of add our own flavour, if you like, which creates a diversity of choice for parents.
Yeah, another element which I think really does set the British international schools apart is actually the community of British international schools that is worldwide. A lot of the other curriculum, they tend to be a little bit standalone, but there really is a thriving community of British schools, British curriculum schools, both within Dubai, the UAE, but globally. Now, the impact for students means that there are organisations such as COBIS, the Council of British International Schools, British Schools in the Middle East, who run competitions and opportunities for students that they wouldn't normally be able to access. So it could well be an art competition that's done online, or they submit that work, but there are debating competitions as far-flung as Kazakhstan or wherever. At Dear International School last year, we ran the BSME Under 13 Games, which had over 20 British international schools from the Middle East coming to compete. And I do think that's an element that other curricula, other national perspectives don't necessarily have. I think, and Fiona was commenting on this, I think the British international school system is the most collaborative. And obviously, whilst there's an element of that through leadership and teachers, I think there are huge opportunities for students that wouldn't necessarily be available elsewhere.
I think you're right. I think there's always more in common between those schools. There's more common than divides them. And so that does, I think, form that kind of quite collaborative basis. I think one of the kind of questions, and we're talking about British curriculum schools in an international context, is sometimes parents ask me, is it just too Anglo-centric? It's called the British curriculum. Does that mean we're missing out in some ways on the internationalism?
Certainly not. I mean, every school is different, especially the ones in Dubai, but we tailor the curriculum to meet the needs of our families and the communities we serve. So, for example, in our school, we brought the business curriculum, which normally is something we would start doing for GCSEs. We've brought that down further into Key Stage 3 because we recognise that in Dubai it's a hugely popular subject. Lots of the families that we serve have their own businesses, so it's preparing the students to go and work in those businesses. Equally, within the way that the subjects are delivered, there is that degree of flexibility on how you deliver the subject. So, how we teach our English curriculum could be different to how Brett teaches his in his school. We'll get to the same end point, but it's horses for courses in terms of how we deliver our lessons and the pedagogy we use.
So you have that autonomy within the kind of framework to tailor it to your needs. How do you do that at Joseph? Because again, obviously you've got a very broad international intake there. How do you make this curriculum appropriate for your student body?
Yeah, it's a really good question. From our perspective, it's not sort of a one-size-fits-all approach. We work with sort of our senior leadership team, particularly making sure it's culturally sensitive. So all of our planning is checked through our Arabic and Islamic Studies department to make sure that it meets the requirements from a KHDA perspective. But also in terms of our sort of melting pot of different cultures that we serve with our students, we try to make sure that the examples that we give, and whether that's at Key Stage 3 or at GCSE and A-level, that we try to use examples that are applicable to them, just so that we can bring that curriculum to life and make it sort of understandable. So as you said before, it's not sort of, you don't have to be from the UK to understand it and be able to access it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point.
I think we must also note that the exams themselves, there's an international version of each exam. So we have the international A-level, the international GCSE. So a simple example is our geography course. We do the international GCSE for geography because if it's very similar to the British version. Apologise. It's very similar to the GCSE geography. However, it takes out the unit on the UK because a lot of our students haven't lived in the UK.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It's exactly as it, because I think it is just making it relevant to the cohort of students here, and you don't want to be teaching things that are culturally inappropriate, or indeed things that are just not relevant to the kind of life out here. So I think we kind of dwelt a little bit on the kind of strengths of the British curriculum, its flexibility, its transferability. But I think there are some criticisms. I mean, more people say it's too exam focused. Simon, what would be your perspective on that?
I think there's an element of validity to that criticism, but it's a case of ensuring that the curriculum has rigour and more pertinently is recognised externally that the students' achievement. I think it is likely to change in the next 5 years. There's been quite a lot of turmoil in British politics in the last 24 hours plus. But yeah, I think there is an element to that. Of course, coursework is becoming increasingly threatened by the development of artificial intelligence and things such as that, and therefore its validity becomes more questionable. I think there's also an argument to say that the GCSEs at 16 might become less relevant. Yeah, I think there's an element, but ensuring that challenge and rigour creates qualifications that are recognised worldwide is the reason for that at the moment, but we'll see how it develops.
Yes, so lots to watch out for. What are your views on that?
I essentially agree with everything that Simon just said there. There's potentially a new narrative. I hate to say, I wouldn't say it's a reinvention of education, because a lot of the things about the examination structures bring that rigour, and the rigour in the assessment then defines the content that you're teaching. It probably, you could reflect on what's in the curriculum, say it's pretty heavy, there's a lot to be taught in there, and then there's some decisions to be made about what knowledge is important. I don't think anyone here would argue that a basis in fundamental skills and knowledge is critical. There's no way to critical think if you don't have that deep understanding of the knowledge and the content. So there's there's some arguments out there that we should stop doing rote learning, we should stop doing memorisation, and I don't actually think that's the national curriculum. The national curriculum is how you deliver it. So I'm in agreement. There's definitely sort of some winds of change blowing, particularly around GCSEs, and then that obviously will probably reflect upwards and downwards, but I imagine that systemic level of change is going to take some time. So there's a few schools that are out there calling loudly for change, and they're generally small in nature and on the fringes, but I guess they're trying to pull everyone towards a new status quo, which will come slowly in some form.
I think it's interesting for those of you that are kind of looking at an early stage of looking at secondary schools to be aware of the fact that things may change by the time that your children kind of get to that level. I think what's interesting about the combination you offer, and I know it's more generally offered, but with the BTECs and A-levels, of course, the exam focus is quite different with the BTEC because it is mostly coursework.
It's 100% coursework, the ones that we deliver, and exams aren't for everyone. You know, students have different skills, different abilities. How often in the future world of work you're going to have to sit an exam, or you're not going to find information at the touch of a button if you need it. You don't necessarily need to learn and remember facts. So the BTEC is providing a qualification that teaches slightly different skills, which is very valid in today's world.
Yeah, certainly can lead you forward into and definitely suit some children more.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think another thing is, I'm sat here speaking to someone who is actually went down the vocational route myself. So as someone that went through the BTEC for sport, then went into physical education at degree level, I found that it was a real sort of access for me to get onto the next level of my career path. In terms of the BTEC and the beauty of it as well, is that you don't just have to do it in one way. So for example, you could do orally, so you could sort of record audio as well, so students could present. They could do video recordings, so the way in which students also have to submit coursework, it's very flexible as well, which gives opportunities to students that maybe don't have that sort of academic grounding, but gives them an opportunity to succeed as well. I know in the UK they've got stuff like T-Skills as well, and I know we haven't introduced that yet in this country, but I do think going forward that the vocational will expand, with the sort of the growing market of wanting to make students sort of job ready and ready for their careers.
Thank you. Thank you all very much indeed for that. I think what we've established is it's a very flexible framework, that it can be delivered in lots of different ways in different schools. And when you're talking to the schools, I think it's really important that you ask them that and establish what is your kind of method delivery, what's your focus. And the British curriculum is just one part of the decision-making process, I think, for any family. I think what we've established is that there's a kind of breadth at the beginning of the British curriculum, and gradually as you go through it gets more specialised, and that it has really positive outcomes for students. I think what you've just described, very good preparation for the 21st century skills that the world is looking for, and you're preparing these children for a very uncertain and different world. But also the winds of change, that things are changing and that the education is kind of being reevaluated in that kind of context. So thank you all very much indeed. And I'd like to now open it up to questions, please, from the audience. Have we got anybody here who'd like to, once we've got this wealth of experience in front of you, to ask anything? No, it looks as if we may have covered everything. But these gentlemen will all be around at their tables all day. So we have the Arbor School, we have Dover International School, we have James Metropole, and we have Jim's First Point, the Villa. So please go and see them at their stands, and if you have any questions, I'm sure they'll be delighted to answer them. Thank you very much for joining us.